What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning in. My name is Gregson and welcome to Shifting Lanes. We're here at the New York Auto Show in the Volvo booth with Jon Mayer, who's the Senior Design Director for the new Volvo V60. And today we are going to get a full scope of what this car is, what it's about, and just show you guys everything about it. So let's take a look. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you taking the time to walk around this beautiful new Volvo. As you guys know, we are huge Volvo fans now. We currently own two Volvo V70Rs. We'll have one soon, but this is sort of a spiritual successor in a way to our own Volvo V70. Obviously you have the V60 and the V90 in the lineup now, but as the Senior Design Director, tell us kind of where you go in a headspace as a big picture when you're designing or your team is designing a new Volvo.
Yeah, I mean, in particular, when we set up this car, I mean, we did have the mindset in mind that this not only replaces today's V60, but the V70, as you mentioned, as well. So there was a lot of that thinking that went into the entire scope of this vehicle, making it dynamic and fluid, but also practical in a sense as well.
Awesome.
When we start thinking about the design space of this vehicle, what we really tried to concentrate around was the stance of the vehicle. Okay. So the dynamic presence of it, and when I mean stance, I talk about how the wheel to body relationship, so how the car actually sits on its wheels.
Right.
So part of the inspiration behind the vehicle was actually that of an athlete. And what I mean is a toned athlete, a runner, for instance, not a bulky, heavy lifter, bodybuilder.
Right.
But an athlete that's poised, kind of a lot of tension, ready to shoot off the blocks, where that has inspired the stance of the vehicle, but also through the surfacing language. So you see a lot of sculpture in the surfaces themselves, which assimilate to kind of a muscular tension.
Right, and I've noticed that. That's a great point to make, obviously because Senior Design Director, but I love the way that the car is designed from that kind of standpoint, where you get different creases in different places that make it look athletic and look really kind of, as you said, poised to really just kind of start in any scenario. Yeah. So I personally think that's beautiful design, and I love that.
Thank you. I mean, the other word we threw around was lightweight. So again, a runner is toned, it's lightweight.
Right.
As opposed to a bodybuilder, big bulky.
Yep.
But in this car in particular, we tried to, get the proportions lightweight, so we have a big side glass window, slim down the sheet metal, again, to make the wheels look big and sit well on the road, but also, as you mentioned, in the actual surface treatment itself, to capture and sculpt light. That's really what you're doing in an exterior design, sculpting sheet metal, sculpting how light reflects or captures in its environment.
Cool. And I guess that's a great transition to the next point, is when you are doing kind of the initial stages of the design, is it sketches, when your team comes up with the initial idea, what's the next phase of the process after the initial idea and you get to the second stage of where you're going with exactly everything on the exterior?
Yeah, I mean, the bit of the design process is a bit different for everyone involved. But in particular, it's usually you start with a sketch and you go and start trying to deliver upon that sketch. Right. In this case, this car was very heavily inspired by our concept estate from a few years ago.
Right.
So it was really trying to take that into a four-door production V60. So that was kind of like the assignment for our team in particular. But as you go through that thinking, you think through sketch form, then that can be pen, napkin, paper, digital, most often digital or on the screens these days.
Right.
And then actually building a wireframe or a line work actually in 3D space. So you can actually start realizing your sketch in 3 dimensions. And then going forward, particularly at Volvo, we like to work a lot digital. We do clay work as well. Okay. In combination, I think the right combination of the two of those technologies is what leads to such phenomenal products. So you have people putting hands physically on clay traditionally, but also meticulously refining in the digital approach as well.
We've gotten into the design process a little bit. Where did you and your team and everyone from Volvo kind of draw inspiration from for this car? Was there a heritage aspect of it? Was there a big idea where you guys literally went into a large meeting room and had a huge ideation meeting, and then it kind of culminated from that? Tell me a little bit about that process.
Well, I mean, there's always inspiration behind, whether it's interior design, exterior design, detailing. There's always some sort of inspiration. I guess the character of this vehicle, again, came from assimilating the body work to a runner, an athlete,
sure.
And all those key attribute words. But this is a wagon. So
right.
Volvo heritage is very, very important.
Yeah. And thank you guys for continuing that wagon heritage.
Yeah.
I'm such a huge wagon fanboy, and I love the wagon heritage that Volvo brings to this table.
We did pick reference from, like say, 1800 ES in particular,
sure.
as far as the muscle over the rear wheel, which is a pretty good shot of it right here.
Right.
But also in that attitude and that practicality. I mean, the reason to have a wagon is that practical element.
Right.
So as we design in particular this area in the car here,
right.
What we did first of all was went with a very open window graphic to let a lot of light in the cabin.
Sure.
Communicate to the customer or consumer that there's a lot of functional space inside,
right.
which there is. This car provides 100 liters, roughly more cargo space than we have in today's V60.
Right.
So it's long, low, and practical, and dynamic at the same time. One thing we did experiment with how upright we should have that rear end. So as a V70,
right.
we know really upright.
Straight up in the back, whereas
yep.
this one, slightly more sculpted.
Yeah.
Not flat.
But much more upright than our V90.
Right.
So the V90
Correct.
is much more elegant and fast.
Yes.
And this one has much more practical element to it. But we hit sort of this magic sweet spot angle where,
right.
again, it has tension in it. So it's not, we can just simply make everything fast, right?
Right.
But having that tension where it looks almost like a bow and arrow ready to be shot.
Yeah.
So again, it goes back to that tension, that runner kind of poised, ready to go.
Right.
And that was sort of what led to a lot of the decisions around the car. We talk about tension on a daily basis, whether it's interior, exterior, wheels, design, anything. You have to put tension into your surfaces and line work
right.
and the design.
And specifically about the trunk, that's a really good point. When you design a back end of a car, specifically a wagon, you have to, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you have to also think about, as you were saying, functional space. Mm-hmm. So the whole shape of it, whereas the V70R from days of Volvo yore, it is that flat kind of thing. This almost probably has, I haven't looked in it yet or anything, but almost more space because of how it's sculpted in the back. Mm-hmm. You're getting more functional space and almost a smaller package.
Yeah, I mean, this is a smaller vehicle than a V90.
Right.
But a couple differences than today's V60. We made the trunk opening much wider
right.
and lower than today's car.
Ah.
So when we do open it up here, we concentrate, on that lift-over height in particular.
Yeah.
So the interior design team and the exterior design team here work really closely together to get this lift-over height very flat, as well as low. So in a practical sense, when you're picking something up and putting it in,
right.
you don't have to lift it too high, you just slide it right in.
Just anything from surfboards to skis to your trip to Home Depot. You can you utilize this for any of those.
To facilitate your lifestyle of choice.
Right.
Whether it's sports, going to Home Depot, like you said.
Exactly.
But to make it practical and well-rounded option.
So we talked about, actually, you made a good point a couple minutes ago about the interior volume. So, and I guess it kind of relates to the exterior question again. When you're sculpting an exterior, you have to think about the interior, the volume capacity, the shape and what you're doing. It's kind of like an in tandem thing, correct? Mm-hmm. It's not just, we have to do the exterior in a vacuum, the interior in a vacuum, and then we meld them to the end. Everything has to be hand in hand, correct?
Yep. I mean, we have a great team at Volvo. And we actually, the interior design team and the exterior design team, the color materials team, sit all together.
Oh,
so we literally
that's great.
Work together physically right in the same space.
That's amazing.
So it is a huge collaboration between interior and exterior and all the functions that lead into one car. There's a ton of people who work per car, from everything to the graphics, where you place the letters,
right.
the shape of them, to the overall surfaces, to the interior, to the infotainment system,
right.
As far as all the connected services. I mean, there's a wide variety of people who work on a vehicle, not just in design.
Right. Yeah. And so compared to the, let's come around this way a little bit so we can see a little bit more of this side of the car, but compared to the outgoing V60, how does this compare in a dimensions perspective? I guess both exterior and interior.
Yep. One thing that you'll notice first off the bat is it's quite long. Right. So the wheelbase is increased from today's V60 roughly 100 millimeters.
Okay.
So a lot of that went into dash to axle, or the premium proportion as we talked about. that goes from the center of the axle, most red, to the front door split or dashboard. That conveys this long bonnet, this powerful feel. But a lot of it went into the rear legroom as well. So it has a lot more rear legroom than today's vehicle,
right,
and that trunk space. So physically, overall length, it's comparable to the same size as today's V60.
Right.
But we've used those dimensions in different ways.
Packaged in a more efficient manner to increase
Yep.
volume in
About 100
different
liters
places.
added to the trunk
Wow.
volume over today's car.
Wow.
So that's, again,
It's a big increase.
due to the setup of the vehicle,
Right.
but also that width in the opening itself and the height of the opening. So we played around and made the most efficient package that we could, centered around functionality and the driver and the interior space.
So let's move into the interior a little bit. If you want to take a look from the passenger seat, basically, tell us a little bit about how the interior was kind of brought about compared to the outgoing model, and how your team has worked with interior and exterior in kind of a combination.
Yeah, I mean the main hero in the interior is the driftwood. So you look
Right.
here, you see this
Gorgeous.
driftwood. Yeah, it's a double curved section. It's quite a complex feature,
Yeah.
but it's done so beautifully in this vehicle. And then it's framed with this silk metal. So you have this wing-shaped profile that's really encapsulated, framed, and as the hero spot in the vehicle.
Right.
So, but the architecture is different than, let's say, an XC60 that carries on a similar theme. But in a low seating car, what we have in a V60 here, the low seating position, just as we do on the exterior, we want low, wide stance to suggest driving dynamics. This
Right.
car is great to drive. It's the same in the interior. So everything's kind of designed on the IP around the driver's eye. So you have a compressed architecture that's very slim, long, low, and wide,
Right.
and wraps into the door with this Bowers & Wilkins speaker.
Right.
So your eye kind of tracks and it just keeps going.
Looks like a seamless kind of line
Yeah.
around the whole front
Yeah, again,
passenger
that's
compartment.
all around conveying you're in a cockpit, you're driving this
Right.
vehicle.
Right now we have two different trim levels. We have the Inscription and the Momentum, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit of the differences between those two.
Okay. What we have here is the Pebble Gray, brand new color for this car.
Perfect.
As well as up in the booth there, we have a Momentum trim level, which is in Birch Light Metallic.
Okay.
So that's also a brand new color that we start on the 60 cluster and the low 60 cluster, and we'll introduce to the rest of our products.
Cool.
But what makes this car an Inscription level, you get the Inscription optional 19-inch wheel,
Okay.
which is slightly different than our normal Inscription setup, where on the low 60 V60 here, we've done a multi-split 5-spoke wheel, which
Right.
is a much sportier design than a
Yes.
traditional 10-spoke wheel.
Yep.
So everything, even though it's an Inscription level, the dynamic and sporty feel was, added into every element.
Sure.
What we have here that also makes it an Inscription level is we have chrome inserts in the grille with
nice.
glossy black loops. So we have a very much a floating shape
That's
inside
great.
the grille with a double brake detail in here that separates it from our V90. So it's just that little technical element in there. Grille chrome frame is on both Momentum and Inscription. And then in the lower fog light area, we have a chrome signature element down here that's only on Inscription.
Ah.
And what that does is actually you have this lower wing here,
Right.
which emphasizes how this car is pulled to the ground to suggest driving dynamics.
Right.
And the chrome inlay actually really accents that, almost as mascara.
It
But-
draws the eye there. Just
Yeah.
for me, I want to look at how the angles are working, along with how the chrome is setting off those angles.
Yeah,
It's
and when
really
you
a
see
nice
it
element.
outside, the chrome is very bright,
Yeah.
and you see these wings pulling the car
That's
to the
great.
ground. One aspect that we've also played with, of course, we have Thor's hammer.
Love that.
Our signature DNA element that
That's
we will
right.
not go away from, but we have in all our vehicles.
Yeah.
But we don't like to do exactly the same thing in every car. We like to differentiate.
Sure.
So, for instance, in the XC60, the Thor's hammer breaks free completely and goes into the grille.
Right.
And on a V90, it's completely contained in that lamp for a little bit more affluent look.
Yeah.
But this one is intentionally done to break free of the lens surround and interlock itself into the bumper.
Yeah.
And what it creates here is almost like a tear duct in your eye, where it suggests a slight bit more attitude and a little bit
Sure.
more aggression and a dynamic feel into the front. So these kind of the eye of the car. It's very, very important
Right.
for that overall look in the front end of the
Right.
vehicle.
And I think it goes to that sportier kind of element of the V60.
Yep.
I think that's a sportier look to that as well, and I think that's a great bit of design language to go along with what the whole kind of aesthetic of the car. So I love that. And I love the Thor's hammer too. Yeah. I've always been a huge fan of that ever since you guys introduced it.
Yeah, when you see that thing coming down the road, it's like, boom, there's Thor's hammer,
instantly
there's a Volvo.
recognizable. All right, if you're getting a V60, what's your personal favorite color choice for the car?
That's a question that does come up quite frequently to me.
Because Volvo's historically has had such cool colors and an amazing color palette, and you guys have kind of there's so many companies that have just a very monochromatic kind of thing. You guys have had like those really cool like magic blue or sonic blue, flash green kind of historical colors. Are you doing that again? And again, the question, what would you kind of spec this in?
Yeah, I mean, we have a fantastic color materials department, so all that stuff that you just said is due credit to a lot of people who put a lot of time into developing materials, colors. Fantastic team. This color in particular, as an exterior designer, it's a beautiful dream color. It has a lot of metallic flake.
Yes.
It picks up a lot of shape. The car does have a lot of shape,
yeah,
but it actually accentuates and shows it off to its fullest. When you see this color outside, just drop dead gorgeous.
Awesome.
It's a warm gray, beautiful, sensual color.
Oh, that's awesome.
For me in particular, I might have to go black.
Yeah.
I have to say.
Stealthy.
That shows off the highlights of those reflections, all that surfacing probably to its utmost because it's such a contrast, black to white reflections. I think
black.
Probably try black.
I like black. I'd like to see this in black. I don't think I've seen it in black yet, but I would love to see that in black. And Volvos in black classically just always look good too, so I cannot argue with you on that one. This is something I've always wanted to ask a OEM design engineer in any capacity.
Okay.
When you guys are thinking of the exterior design or the interior design, and you have these little kind of Easter eggs hidden throughout the car, the Volvo here, I mean it's not in this car, but like Volvo spelled out in a light or something like that throughout the car. Do you guys kind of come up with that after the whole design is done, or do you think about that as it's going through to kind of, you know, not play a trick on the customer obviously, but to kind of keep them involved, like, oh, I found another one, and to keep them kind of engaged in a different way?
No, I mean those are designed in intentionally. I mean, in this instance of having Volvo in the lamp,
sure,
that's pretty much designed in pretty much from the beginning.
Okay,
we know it's going to, in reference, go there in that area. I would like to point out one thing actually that you probably wouldn't notice.
Sure, yeah, of course.
It's a small little thing.
Okay.
I don't know if you would call it an Easter egg or not, but this car has been designed and refined. It's one of our most refined products that we actually have in our portfolio. But one tricky thing that's hard to design around is POS sensors. So these circles that you see everywhere on the cars. Everybody has to do it, the technology that we need.
Sure.
But we've actually hidden one of them in the reflex.
Look at that.
So that's the kind of attention
really well hidden.
So it just cleans up the rear a little bit. You know,
absolutely.
It's that one little thing that we go to the extra mile to really disguise it away from the customer. So I would say that's kind of an Easter egg because you probably wouldn't have noticed it until I pointed it out.
No, exactly, and that's really nice, and that's great design because no one would ever see it unless someone points it out. So that's perfect. That's really cool. So I want to thank you so much, Jon. That was such an awesome walkthrough, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And you know, if you want to learn more about the V60 in any trim, any color, anything you want, you can go to Volvo's website. It's www.volvousa.com and learn more about the car. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. Well done, guys.
Thank you.
Always Volvo, amazing design and amazing design language. So thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next time.